Hello, Playfully Cool Warriors, and welcome to another episode of Climate for Fun, the podcast that turns climate change into a laughing matter. Here is Antonio Salituro, climate scientist, writer, and comedian, and I'm thrilled to have Andrew Boyd with me today. Andrew is a writer, humorist, and activist. Welcome, Andrew, and thanks for joining me.
You're very happy to be here. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot. Ready to laugh at climate change?
Trying.
Yeah, cool. Let's crack on then. Right, Andrew, you recently published a book called I Want a Better Catastrophe, Navigating the Climate Crisis with Grief, Hope, and Gallows Humor. I find the title intriguing and puzzling at the same time, so let's break it down a bit. What do you mean by better catastrophe? Is it like having stock up on Ben & Jerry ice cream before a heat wave clicks in, or something like that?
Yes, definitely. Lots of, if we're in for catastrophe, which we are, unfortunately, because we're missing some of our key targets. We're about to blow past 1.5 degrees centigrade warming and possibly past 2 degrees warming. And, catastrophe is in our future. There's a lot we can do. So if we're gonna have to ride out the catastrophe, try to turn things around, but have a pretty bad century in the process, then yes, may we have lots of Ben & Jerry's premium grade ice cream, and let's also have things like justice. Let's also have things like kindness and solidarity and care, and let's also do as much mitigation as we can in this next decade. This very, very critical decade to try to bend the emissions curve down and make as much of the transition off of fossil fuels to renewables as we can, so we have the least terrible catastrophe that we could, right? So it sounds dark and twisted and pessimistic, but it's actually an extremely hopeful message, this notion of a better catastrophe. It's like looking climate reality in the face and saying, not pretending that things are better. Yes, we need to laugh. It's very important, but not pretending things are better. So how do we get the least worst thing and dedicate ourselves to that? Because it's possibly the most important thing humans have ever done. And laughter is a powerful tool along the way for communicating with people, for piercing the gloom and the darkness and bringing light into it, for bringing people together, to making the truth more bearable, and to just feeling better, right? Feeling better about it all. Just laughter is a psychic survival strategy, an existential survival strategy. So that's where the title comes from a bit. And that's, I think, laughter and humor, both dark and a gentler humor, play a role.
Okay, that's a very comprehensive explanation. Thanks a lot. Because if you come across the title, you can get a bit spaced out by that. But it's good. It's good. Okay, so one of the questions your book is trying to answer is, why the fuck am I recycling? I mean, literally coping for, So I must admit, I ask myself the same question whenever I see all the plastic ends up in the ocean, which is why I'm trying to focus on plastic reduction instead. Anyway, in your book, you describe recycling as a good spiritual practice. I can't help but picture you sitting on your curb in front of your recycling bins with closed eyes, Is that what you meant?
Here, let me, I forget where that is in the book, but it deserves, there are a few very funny passages.
Okay. I'm up for it.
But I'm not going to be able to find it very quickly. So,
right.
I think we all ask that question, right? We all, first of all, we're trained to think that if we can just be good individual environmental citizens, that's all we need to do as individuals. If we can just police our carbon footprint, then that's the most important thing. And let's be very clear that the top global, I think it was in 2004, if I'm not mistaken, one of the top, BP hired one of the top PR firms to come up with a way to make it feel like it's all our fault as individuals, right? So that they can sort of get out from under. So they're the ones who invented the notion of carbon footprint. So let's just be very clear that it's a big ideological move by the fossil fuel industry to shirk their responsibility and make us all feel guilty and self-flagellating about our
Right.
individual carbon footprints while they destroy the planet and make a buck in the process. And so let's just remember that.
Yeah.
But still, so without knowing that it's policy change, it's system change, it's big collective actions to force the bad actors to do the things they don't want to do, to force the fossil fuel companies to basically end fossil fuel extraction as fast as humanly possible.
Yeah.
So that's the main task. But we should also do everything we possibly can as individuals, right? We should recycle. We should move to a plant-based diet. Yeah. We should bicycle. We should, take public transport instead of cars. We should limit our flying. All those things. Yeah. They're still important, and particularly for those relatively well-off people in the global north who've done the most damage here.
Yeah,
need to take a lot of responsibility. But and so I think, though, we don't trust that our recycling matters, right? We don't trust it. And yet we should do it, but it's a little bit like we should do it because in a little small way, it does matter in reality, but we should also do it because it's a good spiritual practice. It's like a prayer. It's like, like a kind of
mental health, like a treat.
But it's staying in integrity with we should do all that we can as individuals, but then also join, use the tools of democracy to force those system changes at the same time. So I think, I think of it as a kind of, it's kind of spiritual practice, a kind of prayer, a kind of,
It makes us feel good with ourselves, basically. Yeah, I mean, in a way, responsibility. You feel the, consciousness and stuff.
And then when we ask other people to step up, whether that's politicians or CEOs or our neighbors, then we feel like we're doing that in good faith, right?
Yeah,
we've done all that we can as an individual. So I think it's important, but there's there's a understandable irony or suspicion or big question mark on it.
Cool. Okay, let's go back to the dark side. Yeah, so your book also includes some flowcharts. Yeah, one of them is called "Choose Your Own Catastrophe." Yeah, so that's funny to me, to be honest. But I'm sure people are dying to know how you let them die. Is this what's all about?
Not. I mean, we're in for a serious reckoning, right? We're in for a very serious reckoning.
True.
That doesn't mean there's not a role for humor. That doesn't mean there's nothing to be done, right? And so, but we're in a predicament. We're facing very difficult choices. Sometimes it's a choice, like in one of the places I asked the question, the flowchart has a lot of these decision points.
Yeah.
And it's factual based. These are real forks in the road. It goes through all of these, diverging paths. Some of them are in our hearts. Some of them are in reality.
Yeah.
And, and then I bring humor into it. So it's like, there's a question of like, how bad is it? And I go, you have four choices, pretty bad, bad, really bad, and really, really bad. Those are your four choices. It doesn't mean we're all going to die. But it does mean that it's, we're trying to sober up. And again, not pretend that things are better than they are. The best way to, fix a problem is to acknowledge that you have one, right?
Yeah,
so
true. Let's face the reality. Let's face the reality,
Yeah, and it also, so it also, offers a lot of the dilemmas that we face, do we do mitigation, adaptation, or suffering? Well, all three, right? Especially suffering, right?
Yeah.
Is it too late? Well, there's a lot of different answers to that. And basically it's like yes-ish, but also it's never too late, right? It's like it's too late. We're going to miss some key targets. We should have fixed things 30 and 50 years ago when we knew the problem was happening. Exxon knew 50 years ago, but we didn't. And so yes, it's too late for certain targets that we should have met. There's going to be a lot of damage done, but it's never too late. Every fraction of a degree matters, So there's it's a yes and. Yes, it's too late, and it's never too late. And how do we be honest about both of those and do all the good that we can?
So, true. Yeah, I think so. Basically, you're suggesting that the question should be, how catastrophic should it be?
Well,
do you want to be? Do you want it to be?
Exactly, exactly. And then if people are given that, they'll be like, hopefully the answer is,
as low
for people is as
the least as possible. Yeah.
Like that. There's a when I do these book tour events, I generally end with this chant, and I get everybody to do it, and it's funny but also sobering.
Yeah.
And I say, what do we want? A better catastrophe. When do we want it? As late in the century as possible. And we all do that together. And
that works. That works.
Right. So then the big question of the book and the flowchart and the title, as you mentioned, is like, how do we, how do we, not just how do we get the best catastrophe we can that's still available to us, the least worst one, but how do we, in our hearts, accept that is our mission? That's a very, we're used to fixing problems, or we're used to like, it gets better, everything will be fixed, everything will be better. We can have if we aim for utopia, we can get somewhere close to it. Yeah. And yes, I do believe that even that this, they say that, crisis is always an opportunity, right? And crisis is always a moment of truth. Apocalypse itself, the word in Greek, goes back to an unveiling, right? Yeah. It's a revelation. It's a moment of reckoning and truth.
Yeah.
And that can cause us to remember what's important, the natural world, kindness, justice, and not the hyper accumulation of material goods and flying halfway across the world for a 3-day, vacation, that kind of stuff, right? Yeah. Remember what's important and how to protect it and preserve it, a livable world for our children. If that requires a systemic reworking of our economy, well, then it's worth it. And that's, like, people don't do the things that are necessary. We don't always do the things that we know we need to do. And that we know we would be better off with, unless we are kind of up against a absolute, requirement that we do so, and a revelation that things are that if we don't, right, that things will be like an even more terrible option than doing nothing, right?
Yeah, true.
And so we must do something. So I don't know. So that's part of it all.
Yeah, we need a slap in the face sometimes. Yeah,
and now we need to slap ourselves.
Yeah, that's exactly. Yeah.
But this is where humor can come in. Humor can work as a sudden insight, right? A sudden bolt of lightning, a sudden shifting of perspective, a sudden realizing something in a different context, right? It can be all those moments, the emperor has no clothes, the ridicule of power, the ridicule of things that we accept as true, all of that. It can often be the best kind of humor is a generous invitation to see things differently, right? It's a revelation, and to think and to feel and also to feel our humanity in a way that's outside of the boxes that we may have put ourselves in that separate us from others. It sort of it can bring people together in our sort of, we're all in the mud looking up at the stars.
True. Okay, cool. So one of my talking about humor, so one of my previous guests said that good nature comedy works better than gallows humor for climate communication. So how would you respond to that? But before you go for it, just want to mention that I hope you're blown away by climate-driven tornado is not an acceptable answer, yeah?
Getting blown away by a climate tornado. Yeah, I don't know if I think they're both. Here's what I think, and this is not a cop-out. This is very deep in my bones. I think both are important. Both have their value. Both have their uses. So, like there's an example of like, if you will, what do you call it? Nice humor. What is it called?
Good nature humor, wow.
Yeah. So good-natured humor. There's a great example of it in the book, which is like a big climate conference, right? And there's somebody up at the podium. A lot of people in the room. Well, somebody up at the podium listing things like safe communities, clean water, clean air, green, clean energy, listing all these great things. And, and then there's a guy in the back, a grumpy, older white guy in the back, whatever, just saying something, and he's like, but what if it's all a hoax and we create a better world for nothing? What if it's all a hoax and we create a better world for nothing? So that's very good-natured humor, That's like, right. Why are we fighting over whether climate change is real or not when we could reduce pollution, we could decentralize energy, we could make things cleaner and cheaper and simpler and more in our democratic control, town by town. And we don't have to agree about the science. Arguably, that is something that has benefits independent of this, debate about whether the Earth is 6,000 years old or 4.3 billion, and we are causing greenhouse gases are caused by human activity. We don't. There's so many obvious good things to outcomes from this. So it's sort of like, right. And it could bring people together who maybe disagree on that, but who think clean energy or community solar are good, but might disagree on bigger ideological, religious, or cosmological things. So it's very funny. That's kind of a good-natured humor that I think is very powerful and revealing and brings people together. But then I think also there's we're in for a really, I think people. So I'm a very enthusiastic person. I'm a very hopeful person. I have 30 years, as an activist, right? I'm obviously not the traditional pessimist, right? I'm not the traditional apocalyptic person. I'm the person who's like eyes on the prize. Things could be better. Let's do this. Let's make this happen. For decades. So, but why have I written a book with a lot of dark humor? Why have I, because pretending that things are better than they are has been a disservice, right? Okay. That it's very, very hard for people. They don't want to talk about climate change. They don't want to think about climate change. They don't want to deal with what it means, what it requires of us as individuals or as a society or as governments or whatever. People don't want to do that. And so there's a lot of denial, there's a lot of delay, there's a lot of kicking the can down the road, there's a lot of wishful fake optimism, fake thinking. There's a lot of ways to sort of make the solutions all compatible with business as usual, and And so that is hurting us. That is not helping. That is delaying our reckoning. That is taking tools out of our hands. That is making it hard for us all to come together and agree and make the huge World War II level mobilization efforts that are required of us. Cool. And so we need to live in the climate truth. And it's very hard for people. And when they do, it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking. And so in those places, for people who are in that place, who are dealing with despair and kind of paralysis and doom and climate anxiety and the frustration of seeing the truth, but it's not being acknowledged by governments and leaders and public public opinion makers and media folks and at the level that it deserves. Like Greta says, it should be front page news every day in the newspaper for the next 100 years. And, it's not. So then for folks like us, gallows humor, dark humor can be a real help. It can be a real aid. It can acknowledge the darkness and our sort of cosmic situation and be I don't know, like honor the heartbreak and make it easier to hold, and leaven the darkness, Yeah. Okay. I'm reading about World War II veterans, who, and folks on the front lines in the Ukraine, and that gallows humor is absolutely essential to their survival. True. And so it's similar thing. Like it's So okay, even the phrase better catastrophe is a joke, but it is a truth as well. And so anyway,
it's a better way to face the reality, basically. Yeah. It's a more productive way to face reality.
It acknowledges the darkness and still steps in with like, we have agency. There are things we can do. There's things we must do.
Yeah.
Things are bad, but we can make them, but they don't have to be as bad as they could be,
Okay.
So anyway.
Cool. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so besides being an author, yeah, you're also an activist. So in particular, you run a campaign to raise awareness on how the Koch brothers funded climate change denial. So climate activists are blocking roads to attract people's attention. Now, would they attract your attention or drive you mad if you were to stumble across them on the way to your book presentation?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, I mean, I would like the scenario I always imagine is like being, trapped in an elevator with somebody, right? Like you're like, you don't know them. They're on one floor going somewhere. You're on another floor going somewhere. You happen to be in the elevator for like, 10 seconds or, 30 seconds. But then the elevator breaks down and you're stuck there for a bunch of hours. So then you have an audience, so then you're like, okay, you're in this situation together. You're both trying to get out. And you have like 3-4 hours to talk about things. And it would be very interesting, I think. It would be very interesting to talk to, David Koch is now dead, but, Charles Koch is still alive.
Yeah.
And it would be very interesting to talk to him. And there will be places we could agree, right? Like there's, because he's a libertarian. He's a very, hyper-capitalist, pro-fossil fuels, right-wing libertarian, but he's a libertarian. And so we could agree on some aspects of criminal justice reform. We could agree on some aspects of pot legalization, So I generally am not a hateful person. There are people who deserve my hate because of what they've done in the world. But, they also, they think they're doing the right thing. So it's always still, even though they're hateful and really toxic and a disaster for the world, they have their own story that explains why they think it's good. Yeah. And so I'm always curious about that. And so I'd be curious to sort of, in my 4 hours with Charles Koch in the elevator, I would be curious to see if I could understand that better. I always like to find the places of agreement. So then I would sort of start there and look, we agree on this. And then it's like, okay. And then he thinks, here is a reasonable person who's talking to me in good faith. Yeah. Right. And looking for the common ground, even though we are on such different parts of the spectrum on so many other ways. So he might maybe, since, this isn't filmed or this isn't public, this is something where he might lean into his own truths and good faith, and who knows what would happen. So, then I would challenge him on some things, and he would challenge me, and we might both learn something.
Yeah, he might listen to us, and then get back in touch. Yeah, you never know.
Or I might decide I might decide to go to jail for the rest of my life, and the best thing I can do for the future of humanity is just to strangle this guy. And maybe I would do that. When else would I ever get an opportunity? And and just know that's my sacrifice.
All right, fair enough.
If only his heir was like, an incredibly progressive, ecology-oriented person, and his, $30 billion would go into the right hands. Maybe it would be, maybe it would be good. All right.
Yeah.
So that's who knows, right? Cool. Hypotheticals. Cool.
Yeah. True. Okay. So next question is: tell me one thing about climate change that makes you laugh. Many, I guess.
Right. Right. No.
No.
Yeah. So there's lots of, it's, for the good-natured jokes here, I've got, I pulled a few from the, from the book. Yeah. So they're, just these funny jokes that I thought were funny that I collected as a sort of example of like what you would call good-natured humor. So, So from the satirical newspaper, The Onion, it was like, Ball canceled after 3 billion seasons. Okay, so that's funny. I don't know that we learn anything exactly, but it's a beloved classic comes to an end. Boom, that's dark. That's dark humor. That's funny.
True.
I don't even know if you remember the midget, if you will, or the very smaller than normal sized person, Gary Coleman, but Conan O'Brien in one of his late night shows, he asks, a 4.5 foot rise in sea level can mean only one thing. Gary Coleman is going to drown. Okay, that's funny. That's funny.
Yeah.
That's funny. It's a little mean to Gary Coleman.
It makes you picture. It makes you picture, though. It makes you picture the thing. Right. Yeah, that's because.
That's right.
Cool, fun.
Yeah. So, there's some examples there. Yeah.
Yeah, you can. There is a lot. There is a lot we can pick from. That's great. Okay, cool. That's you passed the stand-up exam. That definitely that. And now, if you're ready, there is a quiz moment. So my quiz is called
sure.
"Who Wants to Be Climate Aware?" That's my quiz. But there's no millions involved, so no millionaires here. So because budget is restrained. Right. So for each question, you got 3 choices. Yeah. Right. First question. As of 2015, out of all plastic waste ever generated, we recycle only around 9% of it. So why is that? A, because the current recycling system is not profitable enough. B, because Andrew Boyd had not written his book on climate change yet. C, because people like the crunchy microplastic in their food.
All right. Well, I like your questions. I think the questions are doing most of the work here.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that. And I'll have to go with, first of all, 9% is just horrible.
Yeah, it's true.
I'm going to go with A, but I'm going to also add a D.
Okay.
Which is that we have too much plastic in the first place, right? It's
true.
Less about recycling the plastic
that's
than
true.
About producing so much, and that is non-biodegradable, because there's these new plastics that are corn based and whatever.
Yeah, bioplastic, what they call bioplastic.
Bioplastics and that kind of thing. So so I think it's this this extremely faulty mass production of plastic that's based on this extractivist model. And if we can get into more of a circular economy and blah blah blah.
Yeah, it's a good point. It's a good point, to be honest.
And also have these these new engineered bioorganisms that break down plastic.
Yeah.
In landfills, so there's some interesting, but there are some, there's a lot of interesting. There's an international treaty on banning plastic waste. There's a lot of efforts, and I think the EU is leading this with regulations about reducing plastic production. And then I think there's these new technologies of recycling and remediating, plastic. And then there's like collecting of all this plastic in the middle of the oceans and, these kind of new technologies for that.
Yeah, true.
But it's really the source. We need to go to the source. We need to have system-wide solutions. And we need to go at the point of production is where the real change needs to happen.
Cool. Well done. Anyway, well done for the
good question. Question.
Okay. So second question: who said that stories of climate disasters date back to ancient legends and scriptural traditions? So A, Andrew Boyd after smoking weed during one of his spiritual recycling sessions. B, the Dalai Lama after reading Andrew Boyd's book on climate change. C, U.S. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg. I think I pronounced it right.
No, you pronounce that's fine. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Which one you go?
Right. First of all, I like your answers are very funny, and I like this format. But yes, I'm going to go with C.
Yeah, well done.
We should get him a copy. Let's get Pete Buttigieg's, cabinet secretary for transportation in Biden's cabinet. Let's get him a copy of the book, right?
Yeah, that's for sure. That's for sure. Okay, so I got the last question. Yeah.
All right.
So, what is morbid? The morbid desire to travel to Mozambique to experience it before it's radically altered by climate change. B, the morbid desire to travel to places to experience them before they are radically altered by climate change. C, the morbid desire to travel to Andrew Boyd's place and kick his ass after reading his book on climate change.
Oh, yeah. Um, right.
Complicated one.
There are a lot of morbid options at, as quote unquote, at the end of the world,
Yeah.
Like, there's a notion of, there are these little vignettes of different people's takes on when they sort of start to realize the situation we're in. And one of them I subtitle as let's party like it's 2099, like a riff on a Prince song,
Yeah.
And I think there are some folks who take that attitude. It's like, hey man, this is all going to hell. Let's just have fun let's just be in the party car, the bar car of this train that's going over the cliff. Woohoo! And in some ways it's an understandable, let's go to Mozambique and experience it before it's gone.
Yeah.
And there's a way in which that could be extremely selfish. There's another way in which, like minus the plane flight, like let's just say it's like, let's take a long walk into the nearby forest to experience it before, it is on fire, or before, the trees, die of drought, or, before the construction people come in and build another unnecessary, McMansion.
Yeah.
So there is a morbid but wisdom in that, because it's like, yes, we are going to lose things. We're going to lose things. The coral reefs are going to bleach.
Yeah.
Even when Naomi Klein went to Australia, she acknowledged, hey, I'm flying to Australia. I try to fly as little as possible, but here I am on book tour. And, I want my kid to see the Great Barrier Reef before it's gone. What is it going to be like I show him all these pictures, go through these picture books of things that may be destroyed before he gets a chance to see them. It's very, very sad. But in some ways, weirdly, it might be our responsibility, being alive and aware right now, to love and experience and witness and drink in the beauty that is still left. Not at the expense of destroying the world further by flying halfway around the world just to sort of satisfy a morbid curiosity, but because the beauty is there and it may not be there for future generations. So we should let it affect us. We should commune with it. It will do us some good. It's a way to honor, these beautiful places and beautiful brother and sister species who we share the planet with. And it might, it might be a way for us to then at some point be able to share that feeling, or, take the photos or tell the stories, or, of what that was like. So, yes, it's morbid. Yes, those are funny. Those are funny paradoxes, but also there's something very, very serious and beautiful, or serious in what you're saying, and requires us to lean into the beauty that remains, and obviously try to preserve it. What better way to drink in the forest than, standing in front of the bulldozer, trying to prevent the bulldozer from, destroying it, right?
True.
But maybe the night before the action, you go for a walk in the woods and look at the stars and smell the trees and that kind of thing, So who knows? Antonio, it's been a pleasure talking with you. And before I leave, I just wanted to remind your listeners that everything about the book is available at bettercatastrophe.com. bettercatastrophe.com. You can read excerpts from the book before you decide to buy. It's an easy way to save yourself $30. If you think the excerpts are great, well then fine, then the $30 is worth it. But you can also look at some of the graphics that we talked about, flowchart and everything. Yeah. Soon there'll be an interactive version of the flowchart only available on the website, nowhere else. And people can also see tour dates there. I will be in the UK and Europe in the month of June, in various places in London, in Bristol, in Copenhagen, in Berlin. So you can check out when and where and sign up or tell your friends. And thanks for Antonio again. I really appreciate you bringing humor to such a tough problem for a lot of people. I think it's a real mental health gift that you're doing here. Both the both the good-natured humor and the dark humor. We need them both. They both have different purposes, and thank you for holding that up and inviting folks on and keeping that conversation going.
Thanks.
And it's a real service. So yeah, Better Catastrophe. I Want to Better Catastrophe is the book, and bettercatastrophe.com is the website. Thanks again for having me.
Thanks a lot, and thanks for your contribution. To be honest, like I'm gonna try to come and visit you in one of your tour in UK. Let's see if I manage.
Okay, all right, wonderful.
Yeah, thanks a lot again, and thanks to whoever tuning. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. You don't have to be in Bristol or or London. There will be several online events, so
cool.
You can just there'll be people who can you and others. Who want to join. There'll be more and more of these online events. There's one scheduled on the website now, and there will be many more to come. And so that's another way to experience the sort of humor live, even though it's at a distance, even though it's on the internet.
Yeah, we save on the carbon footprint, yeah.
There you go.
That's great. Right, that's great. Thanks a lot again. And, thanks to whoever tuned in today. Next episode will be in a month as usual. In the meantime, remember to fight climate change one dark laugh at a time. Ciao. Ciao, Andrew.
Ciao. Thank you. Bye.